Bonjour, my brethren. DigiWiz here, and risen from the dead of like a month's hiatus to bring you another Wiz certified banger. I'm going to be taking a bit of a hiatus from Project Aperture. I know, it's horrible, it's such an atrocity. But I have to, as things are going slower than I anticipated. Things such as can't pay the portal because of weather. That's pretty much the only thing, but still, has to be perfect. So to keep things flowing to some sort of degree, I will be making, or try to make, a series of videos covering electronic and computational concepts, which I have dubbed the Computational Compendium. Yes, I know, it's a very creative title. I am the smartest person to exist. If you saw the title and thumbnail, then you'll know that the first topic being covered is LEDs. LEDs are nearly everywhere in modern life, a quintessential part of it, to be exact. We use them to light up our homes as indicators, i.e. on an oven when the temperature is right. Art pieces like LED cubes for some reason. I mean, they are cool, but why? As well as you know, bedazzlement on your cosplay pieces, as well as much, much more. So, let's take a deep dive into what LEDs are and how they can be used. First and foremostly, what actually is an LED? Well, LED is an acronym for an electrical component known as a light-emitting diode. An LED lights up when current passes through the anode across a wire, then it hits a semiconductor die. The current then passes through the cathode, continuing along the rest of the electrical circuit. When this reaction happens, electroluminescence occurs, which is when photon energy is released through light instead of heat. Various materials are used in the semiconductor to make the different colors of light on the known spectrum. For instance, to make a blue LED, the dye will be made from gallium nitride, or to make a white LED, you would use yttrium aluminium garnet. Now that we have a basic understanding of how LEDs work, let's take a look at how to use them. An LED has two leads on the bottom of it. A cathode, the short one, and an anode, the long one. These are the negative and positive ends of the LED, respectively. To actually make the LED turn on, you must connect the positive end of your power supply of choice to the anode, and the negative to the cathode. If you accidentally mix up the ends, fret not. An LED won't blow up, but just won't turn on unless the sides are correct. Speaking of blowing the LED, some things you probably shouldn't do if you want to not kill your LED is not give it too much voltage and or current. Too much of those can overload the LED and cause it to become mega bruh. Most LEDs you'll find run quite comfortably at around 2 volts to 3 volts with a current of 30 milliamps. This can change, however, depending on the color of LED that you choose. It ranges from 20 milliamps, I think, all the way up to 35. Unless you're a sadistic little fecker who just likes blowing LEDs on the reg, you'll need to make sure that your power supply and LED play nice with each other. Introducing the resistor! This little component can reduce the voltage of a circuit by slowing down the speed at which the current moves through the resistor as electrons bump against each other, almost like standing in a queue for a flight, or being in a traffic jam, or anything else that requires not moving for a really long time. Just think of any other analogy that involves that basic concept, and you have resistors down to a T. The electrons moving with such constrained spaces produces a lot of friction against them. And so resistors then tend to get a little hot, sometimes reaching temperatures as high as 150 degrees. And as someone who's touched things that are twice that hot, I'd recommend not doing that. unless you want to severely burn yourself, something which my hands have not thanked me for. To find a resistor for an LED, you could just get a random resistor and plonk that between the power source and LED, but then you'd have to be diagnosed with a condition called being very stupid. Because the resistance could be so high that the LED doesn't turn on at all, or so low that the resistor would be as useful as a Discord mod in a foot race. To know the resistance needed for an LED, you need to know 3 specific values. The voltage of the LEDs, sometimes referred to as supply voltage in their data sheets. The voltage of your chosen power source, listed either on the side or on its product page. And the current rating of the LED, also listed on its datasheet. These 3 values can be plugged into the formula shown on screen right now. You subtract the battery voltage from the voltage of the LED, and then you divide that value by the current of your LED, convert the milliamps to amps just because it's easier, just multiply it by 100. Then you get the desired resistance value. The unit for resistance is ohms, by the way, which more often than not is represented by the omega symbol, something which people who have played the Pokemon games will know quite well. When wiring up a circuit, you can put the resistor pretty much anywhere, as long as it's after the power supply and before the LED. Anywhere else, bad things happen. It's just no exceptions, nada, nout. It doesn't really matter in particular if the resistor is placed on the positive end or the negative end, just as long as it's there. Now let's move on to an example of a simple use of an LED in a circuit. So here we have a classic circuit example. A battery connected to an LED. The LED is rated at 3 volts with 30 milliamps, and the battery is 9 volts. Already, we're going to need to run this information through our formula before we do anything. So you take the 9 volts away from the 3 volts, and you get 6 volts. Divide that by the 0.03 amps, and you get 200 ohms, which is the desired resistor you would use. And now here is a scenario that you can try and solve on your own. We have a 12 volt battery along with a 2.5 volt LED rated at 20 milliamps this time. Now the question is, what is the correct resistor to use in this circuit so the LED works properly? Pause the video if you need to. Now, if you got 475 ohms, then you would be correct. That is the simplest type of LED circuit that you can make, which you may have probably seen or done in school with the traditional experiment of powering a small light bulb. I didn't use any resistors at all. I just wired the power straight to the light bulb. I was surprised it actually turned on without blowing up. Next, we're going to look at different styles of wiring together multiple LEDs, because wiring up one is just boring. Whatever reason you have for wanting to do so, you want to power multiple LEDs now instead of one. Commendable. You gotta expand your repertoire somehow. There are 2 methods of powering multiple LEDs: parallel or series. We'll look at series first, because that is more straightforward. For those watching who have put up lights on their Christmas trees, or to be honest, that's a no-brainer, you must put your Christmas tree up at that point to have the Christmas lights on, but anyway. Those are wired in series, which just means one after the other. In series, ironically. Who could have guessed? This is good because it's fairly easy to wire up, but also quite troublesome to diagnose a fault or an error. Because if one bulb goes, then they all go. It's almost like a domino effect, actually. Because there is a break in the link, so to speak. To wire a resistor for this type of setup, it's the same as before, but just add up all the voltages of the LEDs and then do the formula as before to get the proper resistance value. Another thing you can do with resistors is if you don't have the exact resistance value at hand, you can wire resistors in series to add up the resistance value, which can sometimes work a treat. Next LED wiring method is parallel, which, in my opinion, its only pro is it's better for troubleshooting, because all the LEDs don't go out just because one does. But they're a bitch to wire. To wire a parallel circuit, you almost bunny hop from one lead to the next with a separate resistor being connected to each LED, unlike the more simple series circuit. Got one last test for you now before the video's out. Come on, we're almost at the finish line. We got a 12-volt battery and 5 LEDs wired in parallel. 2 are rated at 3 volts with 30 milliamps. 1 is rated at 1.5 volts with 30 milliamps as well. And the other 2 are rated at 2 volts with 20 milliamps. So if you can get the answer, post in the comments section below. The first correct one I see will get a reply from me saying something nice or something somewhat endearing or supportive. It's a great honor. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I really do appreciate it, because I'm not doing this for the money. I'm just doing this because I just love electronics. They're amazing, lads. If you want me to cover RGB and addressable RGB LEDs, then make sure to get this video to 100 likes in the next week, and I'll make that video. Thank you all so much for watching. I bid you all au revoir, my brethren. Good night, as well as Joyeux Noël.